Yes, now welcome back everybody. Now we'll discuss about what is loops and Python. Very interesting topic, loops, and very most useful topic, that is loops, right? So what is loops? In general, if you ask me what is loop, a loop is nothing but if you want to do some certain task repeatedly again and again, you will go for loops, right? For example, if you ask me what is your daily routine, so in the morning I woke up at 5 a.m. and I will freshen up and then I will start going to office and again I do my work and again I go back to home and again I will upskill, again I will have a good sleep, again the same next day will be the repeating cycle for me, right? That is what loop is all about. Doing the same certain task repeatedly again and again. So we'll discuss more about what is loop in Python. Without wasting further ado, we'll talk about what is loops. So you can see in Python, a loop is a control statement or else control flow statement that allows you to execute a block of code repeatedly, right? Python supports two different types of loops. One is for loop and the other one is while loop. What is the difference between for loop and while loop? You can ask me, right? So both loop allows you to iterate a block of code for multiple number of times, but they are usually different scenarios. Whereas if you want to talk about the while loop will be keep on continuing the entire loop till it breaks. So when to use while loop in the sense when you don't know the n number of iterations, at that particular time you want to go for while loop. When to use for loop? When you know the number of iterations. For example, if I want to do some certain task 5 times, I will go for loop. But I don't know, I want to do some certain operations until I achieve this. So at that particular time, I will go for while loop. For an scenario, consider as you are an student, if you want to apply for a job and if you want to get into a good company, for example, Amazon, so at that particular time, you want to go for a while loop. For an example, you are attempting a first attempt, so you failed. So you are giving an other attempt. So you are giving an another attempt. You are giving an attempt over attempt until you crack the interview. That is what while loop is. For loop is you are giving an attempt for n number of times. For example, consider you are giving an attempt for 3 times. So you will apply first time if you are rejected, if you are applying for second time and you are rejected if you are applying for third time. That's it. So when you are applying for number of times that you know, then you go for loop. If you want to run the loop until you break the entire loop, you go for while loop. I hope that's clear. So this is your flow statement or the structure of your while loop and as well as for loop. If false, so basically if true, it will go into this first section, that is while. You want to write a while and you want to write some condition, and below the condition you are writing the block of code or the statements, and then the same iteration keeps on repeats, right? Whereas in the for loop you are providing an initialization. For example, how many times the iterables needs to be initialized, then you are providing some condition and updation, and you are writing the block of code or the statement, and then this statement executes n number of times that you are specified. So now we'll discuss about what is a while loop. While loops are nothing but a loop that are used to execute the specific block of code repeatedly. So the while loop in Python is used to iterate the over a block of code as long as the test expression holds true. This loop is used to when the number of iterations is unknown, right? So you are writing while, you are specifying the condition and you are specifying the body of while loop. So this diagram will help you to have a clear understanding of while loop, where you have a test expression. So if the loop is true, where the body of the while loop will be keep on getting executed until it gets failed, right? So here I have provided some basic example of while loop. So I have created a new variable called number, that is 10, and I am initializing my data, that is nothing but addition is equals to 0, and I have provided I is equals to 1. Here I am providing an while loop while I is less than equals to num, that is nothing but 1 is less than equals to 10. Yes, 1 is less than equals to 10. This condition satisfies. So if this condition satisfies, then perform this operation. That is nothing but addition is equals to addition plus 1, and you are incrementing the value of I. What happens if you don't increment the value of I? The loop will be keep on executing and it will not stop, never stops. So you want to make sure that you are breaking an loop. So that is what your while loop is. In the while loop, we have various different operations that you can perform. So breaking out the while loop. So you can use break as a statement in the while loop. You can use break statement to exit the while loop permanently. So you are providing an example that where you have given the counter as 1. So while the count is less than equals to 5, you want to keep on executing the loop. So for example, at the beginning, the count is less than 5 is less than equals to 1 is less than equals to 5, right? So it will go for if condition. If the count is equals to 3, then you are stopping it, stopping the entire loop. So 1 is not equals to 3, so it prints the output as 1. So the count will get increased from 1 to 2. So again it will check the condition 2 is not equals to 3. So again it will continue the loop, and when the count is equals to 3, so 3 is equals to 3. So this condition, this if condition satisfied, then it will break the loop. So that what this diagram also represents. So you have condition, if the condition is true, then go for this particular statement and then break the condition and break the entire loop, right? So continue, where you can use continue in the while loop. What is this continue does? Continue statement does. The continue statement will skip the rest of the code inside the loop for the current iteration, where this break will stop the entire loop, whereas continue will skip the code instead of stopping the loop, right? And next, we'll talk about what is nested while loop. So nested while loop is nothing but you're writing a while loop. Inside the while loop is called nested while loop. So we'll talk about what is nested while loop and how you can use nested while loop in later on stages. So using an else with while loop. So Python also allows you to use the else block with while loop. The else block is executed when the loop condition becomes fail, right? So before going to the for loop, we'll talk about while loop and we'll try to perform some operation by using the while loop. Let me start sharing my Python script file screen. Let me create a new file. Let me add a picture of while loop here for your better understanding. So if you want to attach your images, just now I taken the screenshot of my image. If you want to attach this, what you can do, you can first convert this particular cell to a markdown. First I will click on yum to convert my cell to markdown, and I will paste the image PNG format. Can you see here? The link is attached and the image is displayed. This is how we can attach the image in the particular IPYNB file. So I will give the headline as intro to loops in Python. So as I mentioned, if in Python the while loop is nothing but if you want to execute the certain block of code until it fails, right? So let me write down some steps that we want to involve or that we want to follow while creating a while loop. So we have follow 5 different steps while performing the while loop. 5 steps. needs to, or 5 steps involved in while loops. Let me write as steps involved in while loop. So what is your first steps? What is the first step that you want to follow while performing an while loop is you want to initialize your variable, right? So initialization is very most important. So let me write as initialization. Initializing what? Initializing the variable. So the variable are nothing but like count for an example is initialized to 1. For this demo, I will be using count as the variable. I am initializing that count to 1. So your next point that you want to follow is you want to write a condition here. So for example, what type of condition? For example, while performing the loops, you want to have a condition here. The loop checks the condition like less than equals to 5. That is the example that we have taken, right? So if you see this example, we took that less than equals to 5 or less than equals to 10. Here I have taken the less than equals to 10. So for an example, let me give it as count is less than equals to 5. So this is the condition that you have specified here. This is the condition that you want to mention. If this condition is true, if the condition is true, then the loop will executes the block of code, right? If the condition is true, then loop executes the independent block of code. Or executes the block of code. So third thing that you want to perform an execution statement. So in this execution statement, you are specifying this execution statement, what needs to be mentioned here. So let me write as execution as the loop prints the current value of the count. Current value of the count by incremental order of 1. You can give increasing of 1 or increasing of 2 or increasing of n. That is your wish completely. Why I want to increase in the sense, if you don't increase the value of count, what happens? The loop will be keep on iterating. So it will never break. So if the loop does not breaks, what happens? It will be keep on iterating, right? So I want to increase my value of count by 1. Example, you can give it as count plus equals to 1 or count is equals to count plus 1. Both are one and the same. This is your assignment operator by writing in shorthand notation. This is your generic form. So after increasing the values, the next step is you want to re-evaluate the data, right? Here you are re-evaluating it, whether the condition is correct or not. What is next position? That is re-evaluation. So re-evaluating the condition. And the last is your terminating your entire loop, right? Last is your termination. So this is the 5 important steps that you want to follow while creating a loops. First thing is you're initializing, then you're writing some condition, then execution, then re-evaluation, and then you're terminating the entire while loop. So this is the step that you want to follow while performing an while loop. So if you want to keep this in the markdown cell, you can just click on yum and you can just save it. Can you see here? So this is the functionality or beauty of using Jupyter Notebook, where all the documentation you can maintain it step by step. So here I have header, or there is nothing but heading. and here I have the particular image, here I have subheadings, and here I have pointers. So you can create this type of beautiful notebook and script file, right? So now I will write a syntax for while loop. The syntax of while loop is very simple, where you are writing while and you performing some condition here. You want to write colon. This colon helps you to understand we have a multiple statement that you are writing below. That's why we use colon here, and here you are writing statement, and here you are increasing the value. That's what I mentioned here. You want to perform the incremental values. Incremental values. So let me make it as markdown, this particular cell. So what happens if you execute, in the sense, sometimes you can see the line is repeated to the previous line. So give some spaces at the top and then try to execute it, okay? Or else convert this data to raw file. So if you use R, that will convert the markdown to raw cell. So now let me talk about first example, as we discussed before, that is a counter of 1, right? So for example, I want to print 1 to 5 using while loop. Printing 1 to 5 using while loop. So first thing what I want to do, as I mentioned here, first thing I want to initialize. So let me initialize here. Like let me initialize count is equals to 1. So I have initialized my count is equals to 1. That is what I have mentioned in the first line of code. The second pointer that I have mentioned, I want to write the condition. So how do I write the condition? This is your while loop condition. I want to follow the same procedure that is present in the syntax. Syntax are nothing but a grammar that we use while talking English, right? So we want to follow certain set of rules like grammars while we communicating in certain particular languages, right? The same way Python or any programming paradigm also follows the same structure while writing any programs. So now we want to perform the statements. Before statement, write the condition. So in the condition, I am writing it as while. I am using an while loop. So can you see the color difference? That means this is already a predefined object, that is while. So here you are writing a counter function. So this count function is nothing but the variable that you have defined. Count is a variable here, is less than equals to 5. So you are writing in condition here, whether the count is less than equals to 5. That means what you are checking, whether the 1 is less than equals to 5 or what you are checking. So always you perform this operation, that is nothing but you are writing in conditional statement. The output of the conditional statement will always be a Boolean value. Boolean value is nothing but either a true or either a false. If you execute this, can you see the output is true? Yes, right? If 1 is less than 5, where the 5 is more than or greater than 1. So this condition satisfies. So if this condition satisfies, you perform some statement. So what is the statement that I am telling? Print count. What is the count now? The value of count is 1. So you have mentioned the statement. If you just execute this, the loop will be keep on iterating. So there is no end for the particular loop. There is no termination, because always the 1 is less than 5. So the loop will be iterating. So always make sure while you providing this statement, you also providing the incremental value to terminate the entire loop. So how do I provide the incremental value? I am specifying here count plus equals to 1. You can also write this in such a way that count is equals to count plus 1. Both are one and the same. Now if you execute, what happens? Your output will be 1 to 5. 1 to 5 as I mentioned. How this works? If you want to understand in detail like how this works, you can just go to the PyCharm, you can search for PyCharm and you can debug the entire code, how it works. That basically works in this way. So first time the count, the value of count will be 1. Actually, the value of count will be 1. Now it is start comparing that is 1 is less than equals to 5. It is checking that. If you write hashtag here, that means it is in comment. So you are checking 1 is less than equals to 5. Of course, yes, 1 is less than equals to 5. So it will print this statement. Print what? Print count you have mentioned. Count is what? Count is 1. So it is printing 1. Next it will go for incremental value. So the value of count now become 2. That is nothing but it is displaying like count was 1 plus 1. That is the value of count is 2 now. So here the value of count will become what? The value of the count will be 2. So now you are checking 2 is less than equals to 5. Is 2 is less than equals to 5? Of course yes. So it will print the value of count. Count value is what now? The count value is 2, right? So it has printed 2 as the output. And again it will increment the value of count. So now the value of count will be 2 plus 1, that is 3. Again it will redirect to the next particular cell, that is nothing but your terminal will be on the top. The value of count will be 3 and you are comparing 3 is less than equals to 5 or what? Yes, 3 is less than 5. Then again it performs the same operation. It will repeat it. Again it will change the value of 3. 3 is plus 1 is 4. So the value of count will become 4 and again we will do the comparison. Count 4 is less than 5. So it will print the value of 4. Again it will change the value of 4 and this will become 5. Your value of count will become 5 and this is 5. Where 5 is less than equals to 5, what will be the output? Yes, 5 is less than equals to 5, the output will be true because you are specifying less than or equals to. You are specifying less than or equals to. You are not, if you specify just less than 5, the output will be false. But you are specifying the 5 is less than or equals to 5. Yes, any one condition is satisfying, then the output will be true here, right? So only it is printing the value of 5 as well. But if you just write count is less than 5, the 5 output will be not printed because 5 is not less than 5. So if you execute this, the output will be just 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see here? Yes. I hope everyone is clearly understood how the while loop works. So this is how the while loop works. It iterates the loop step by step. So if you want to talk about break statement and while loop, so as I mentioned, what break statement does? Break statement will stop the entire loop if the condition is satisfied. Right? Let me write down the subject here as break. What this does? It will stop the entire loop if the condition is satisfied. Got it everyone? What is break statement does? It will stop the entire loop if the condition is satisfied. Now let me give the variable name as a equals 10. So now let me write down the condition. The first thing is initialization. Always try to follow the same step. First thing is what? You want to initialize. Here I have given the steps. You want to follow the same step. First is initialization. Next is condition. Condition is what? This is your while condition. You want to write down a condition like while a is less than equals to, let me write it as 100. So is a is less than equals to 100? Of course yes, right? The 10 is less than 100. So the output is true. This condition satisfies. I want to print the statement below. So what is this statement? Let me print the statement. Before the statement, let me write another condition by stating that if a is greater than 15, then you want to break. So when this condition satisfied, you want to break the entire loop. You want to stop the entire loop. That's what I am mentioning here. So I want to go back to the same line of while loop. Indentation is very important while performing an Python. Can you see here when I give the colon, I want to give 4 space. again this is your statement, again you want to give 8 space from the beginning. Again I am going to the while loop and I am writing a print statement here, print, let me print it as I love my student, right. So how many times it will print? Let me print it as I love my students, alright. If you want to see like number of times it is printed, you can do that. So always you make sure that whenever you write this statement, you also writing an incremental value. What if you don't provide the increment value? Always your 10 will be less than equals to 100. The same what value it will check, and then the same loop will be keep on iterating. It will never stop the loop, right. So to overcome this, I want to break down the entire loop. Let me write it as a plus equals to 1. So the output, what happens in the output? The output will be printed as I love my students. How many times? It will print almost like a is till it satisfies a is greater than 15. So first times 10 is greater than, it will check if is 10 is less than 100, yes it is correct, and it will check out is 10 is greater than 15, no it is not greater than 15, so it will skip this and then it will print this information. So that is nothing but one time it will print I love my student. Again it will go, the value of a will become 11, so 11 is not satisfied, 11 is not greater than 15, so it will print 2 times. Again 12 is not greater than 15, so 3 times. 13 is not greater than 15, so 4 times. So lastly it will print it as 15. 15 is also not greater than 15. So sixth time it will stop it. It won't print sixth time because 16 is greater than 15. So it will stop the loop. So I love my students will be printed 5 times. Let me print and showcase to you. Can you see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if you want to see like what is the value of a, you can just use comma and you can print the value of a as 10. So can you see here? As I mentioned here, 10, 11, 12, still 15 times it has printed. So as simple as while loop, right? So everyone understood what is the break functionalities. When this condition satisfied, the entire loop got breaked. Can you see here? After 15, so 16th information is not printing because you are checking this is 16 is greater than equals to 15. Yes, of course, 16 is greater than equals to 15. So it is breaking the entire loop. So this is the functionality of break. Break will stop the entire loop in the conditional statement. So now we'll talk about the next functionalities. Now we'll talk about continue. What is continue? As I mentioned before, continue skips the particular element once it is satisfied, right? So it will skip the particular element and will jump for the next elements or next conditions. So let me write as continue in while loop. So continue in while loop. How does continue works in the while loop? Let me discuss in detail. So let me print it as counter. Again, I am providing the same thing as count is equals to 0. Now let me specify while. I want to specify the condition here. First I have initialized the values. Now I want to provide the condition. So let me provide the condition as count is less than 5. So 0 is less than 5, of course yes. So if the value is true, you want to perform the incremental value as count plus equals to 1. So next I am writing then condition here. If is a conditional statement. If count is equals to 3, if this condition satisfies, then what should I want to do? I want to skip the values. So I am writing as continue. Continue, and here I am writing print the value of count. So what happens now? The output will be first it will check this condition whether 0 is greater than or 0 is less than 5? Of course, yes. 0 is less than 5. The output is true. So that means this condition is satisfied. Once this condition is satisfied, it will go for count plus equals to 1. That means your count value of count will become 1, and it will check whether the 1 is equals to 3. Is 1 is equals to 3? No, right? The output will be false. So now if this condition is not satisfied, so only continue will not be executed. It will directly go to the print statement and print the value output as, what will be the output? The output will be 1, because you have incremented the value of count. So now the exact value of count is what? The count value after iteration, the value of count will become 1. And next it operates the same thing. It is checking for the condition like 1 is less than 5. Of course, yes, 1 is less than 5. So increase the value of 1 count, that is nothing but the value of, initially the value of count is 1, you are increasing it by 1. So the value of count will become now 2. Now you are checking that is 2 is equals to 3. No, the 2 is not equals to 3. So this statement is not printing, directly is printing the output of 2. Again it will output of count is 2. Now 2 is not, 2 is also less than 5. So the value of count will become 2. 2 plus 1 is nothing but 3. So now it is checking whether 3 equals to 3 or not. Yes, 3 equals to 3. The output will become what? True. If you write conditional statement equals to 3, that is the value of this expression is true. So when this expression is true, it will continue. What continue does? As I mentioned before, continue will skip the values if the condition is satisfied. So it will not print the output of 3. It will not print the output of 3. Again it will iterate and then it will print the output of 4 and 5. So the 3 will get skipped. So let me execute this. Can you see the output? The 3 is getting skipped because you are writing a condition based on the continue. This is what the use case of continue in while loop. I hope you are clear with what is the use case of continue in while loop. Now let me discuss about how to use the nested while loop. So to perform the nested while loop, what is nested while loop? Basically, a nested while loop is nothing but while loop inside the while loop is called as nested while loop. For example, I hope you guys have worked with SQL, right? In an SQL, you have used a subquery. What is subquery? A query inside the another query is called subquery. The same way, in the programming language like Python, we call it as nested loop. Nested loop is nothing but a loop inside the loop. We call it as nested loop. So now let me explain you how the nested loop will works. So we have two different types of loop. One is outer loop and the other one is inner loop. So let me provide the details as nested while loop. So let me provide this header as nested while loop. So let me now print the output of initializing the value as outer count. So this is your outer function variable that is printed as 1. So let me writing a condition here while outer count is less than equals to 3. So you are checking whether the outer count, that is nothing but the value of 1, is less than equals to 3 or not. So this condition is satisfying, 1 is less than 3. So if this condition satisfies, now I am talking about the inner loop or inner count. Inner count is equals to, I will specify it as 1. So now I am writing a inner loop, inner while loop, while inner count, while the inner count is less than equals to 2. If the inner count is less than equals to 2, what happens? I want to print the some statement that is nothing but whether 2, the 1 is less than equals to 2, I am checking. Yes or no, the 1 is less than or equals to 2. Yes, this condition satisfied. So the output will become true. So let me print here F format or else F string by stating that outer function. Let me write the value in the curly braces. So here let me write as outer count. Let me copy this outer count and let me paste it here and also provide the inner count for your understanding. Inner count colon. I will provide the values in the dictionary format. This is not dictionary format. This is whenever you use this dot F format or is nothing but F string. F string works in this way. For example, if you are printing some values like consider name is equals to, consider I am writing my name like G1 Raj and I am writing role is equals to data scientist. So here I have defined name and as well as role. So now if you want to print the information like my name is, again I want to use comma, I want to specify the value, again I want to write the string information and my role is equals to, I want to again use comma and I want to provide the value as role. Can you see here? I have used like quotes multiple times and as well as comma multiple times. If I miss out any quotes at any one time, it will throw me an error. So to overcome this type of complexity, I can use dot format or else F string. To provide F string, it is very simple. You can just provide F at the beginning and you can specify all the string information in the quotes. If you want to provide the values, you want to provide in the curly braces. So let me explain the same thing like my name is, I will use curly braces inside it to provide the values, that is nothing but name, and my role is equals to, in the curly braces I will provide the role. So whatever I specify in the curly braces will be considered it as values that is assigned to the particular variable. So can you see here? This will be more better way of writing the query compared to the above one. The same thing I am trying to do here as well by using the F string. So I provided the inner query and as well as outer query with a statement. Now I will provide the incremental of inner count is plus equals to 1 and also I will increment the outer count. Outer count plus equals to 1. So how this works in the sense? So first it will check out the what is the outer count. So let me specify your OC count is equals to 1 at the beginning. Next your outer count will check the condition. So is 1 is less than equals to 3 or what? Yes, this condition satisfied, right? 1 is less than equals to 3. So once this condition satisfies, the inner count will be 1 itself, and here you're specifying an inner count here. So inner count is nothing but 1 is less than equals to 2. Yes, 1 is less than equals to 2, then it will perform this operation. The output will be outer count. What is the outer count value? That is nothing but 1 and inner count value is also 1. So you are increasing the inner count and outer count values. So the inner count will be 2 and your outer count will be, there is nothing but 1 and 1, that is nothing but 1 and your inner count value will become 2. So until this inner query or inner loop fails, it will not go for the outer loop. So again it will redirect here and your inner count will become 2, this will become 2 and this will checks whether the 2 is less than equals to 2. Yes, If you specify 2 is less than equals to 2, the output will be true. So this condition is also satisfying. Now your output will be, first time your output will be 1 comma 1 and next time your output will be 1 comma 2 because this condition satisfies. Again the value of this will become 2 and this will become 3, inner query will be 3. Again this will be, your value will be 3 and it is checking with whether 3 is less than equals to 2. No, this condition will not satisfy, it will be failed. So your inner loop got failed and now it will go to the outer loop and prints the outer loop values. Understood? So the outer loop value will be what? So outer loop is 1 plus 1, that is nothing but 2 and the inner loop value will be 1. The same way until it breaks the outer loop, the inner loop will be completely executed multiple times. So this is the output of the nested loop. So how it is working? So first it tries to finish all the inner loop operations and then once it fails, then only it provokes for the outer loop and again it will print all the inner loop and then will go for outer loops. So this iteration will be keep on happening. That is called nested loops and Python. I hope you guys are clear with what is nested loops in Python. Now we'll talk about how to use else statement and while loop. Using else statement and while loop. So now you are specifying count is equals to, I am initializing as 1. So while count is less than equals to 3, if this condition satisfies, now I am printing count. I am providing an incremental value for count, that is plus equals to 1 and I am also printing the else statements, else print it as loop ended. Got it everyone? So now what will be the output? At present your first condition will check out. So 1 is less than equals to 3, that is absolutely right. So it print the output of 1 and count value become 2 and 2 is also less than equals to 3. So it will print 2 and also it will print 3 because 3 is less than equals to less than or equals to 3. So it will, the output will be true and it will print the value of 3 and it will go for the else statement and print the output that is present in the else statement, that is loop ended. This is the functionality of else statement. Once the entire while loop is executed, it will go and print the else statement. Can you see the output? This is how the output of else statement can be utilized in particular while loop. So we'll try to solve some of the questions by using the while loop. So for an example where I want to write a query to print the which contains 5 from 1 to 100. For example, consider I want to write a query which contains 5 in it by using the while loop. Write a query to print from 1 to 100 which contains 5 in it. Okay, how do I solve this? By using the while loop. Wherever it contains 5, I want to print it. Is it possible to print it in while loop? No. It is quite difficult because I know the iterations here. How many times it want to iterate? I want to iterate with 1 to 100. So always you want to see the condition here. If you don't know the number of iteration, you want to go for while loop. But here in the question, they are explicitly asking that the number of times the loop should execute is 1 to 100. That is nothing but 100 times the loop should be executed. So at that particular times, you can just go for loop and you can perform the certain operations. Okay. So once I will explain the for loop, I will try to solve this type of questions to you to make you better understanding on the loops concept. So without further ado, we'll talk about the for loop. So if anyone asks you what is a for loop, you can say the for loop as your friend, because whenever you do start programming in Python, you will be often using the for loop to perform any of the tasks. But while loop will be rarely used, but for loop will be oftenly used, right? The for loop in Python is used to iterate over the items of a sequence. So when you want to iterate the elements with the known condition, for example, if you know number of iterations that needs to be performed, you will go for loop. So the for loop is very simple, where you are writing for iterable in any range of values or the number of values, and you are performing some certain task or the statement you are writing below. So let me go back to the script file, and the functional or syntax of for loop looks simple. You can just write as for iterable n range of values or list of values, completely up to you, range of something, and you are providing some statement. So always make sure that whenever you are writing this colon, that means you have multiple statements that needs to be written. So whenever you use colon, that means you provide the 4 space, that is nothing but one tab. So let me keep it into a raw string, raw file. So now let me perform some basic operations. For example, let me print from 1 to 10 using for loop. What I can do, I can just print it as for I in range of, if you write just 10, what does it mean? Range of 10. Range always takes 2 arguments, one is minimum and the other one is maximum. Always make sure that range is nothing but it takes minimum value and maximum value. So range of 10 means the minimum by default Excel or Python will start with 0 as the index position, maximum is 10 you have specified. So always the for starting position will be implicit and stop position will be explicit. Explicit means up to 10, not 10. Okay. So the output will be printed as 0 to 9. If you execute, the output will be 0 to 9. Got it, everyone? So the same thing I've mentioned here. Rather than printing 10, what I want to do, I want to use 11. So 0 to 10 it will print. So if I want to print 1 to 10, I want to give the starting position as 1, comma, ending position as 11. So that prints the output of 1 to 10. So print I. So it is printing from 1 to 10. So this simple is for loop is where you are writing for iterable in the range of these are iterables you can specify here. You can just write as for item in iterable rather than for iterable here, right? For item in iterable. Iterable is what? I am iterating between the list of values. So the output of this will be list of values. This is an iterable where I can iterate individual elements. Got it? So now let me take some examples here. Consider I am taking an example to print the even numbers. So what is the condition for even numbers? If any number is divisible by 2 and the output and the remainder is 0, that means that number is even number, right? Any number is divisible by 2 and the remainder is 0, that means it is an even number. If any number is not divisible by 2, or if it is divisible by 2 and the remainder is not equals to 0, then that is an odd number. So to do this certain task, what I can do, I can just write as if conditional statement like if 2 or if 10 modulus provides you the remainder. If modulus 2, 10 mod 2 is equals to 0, then you want to print this particular information as even, right? Perfect, it's printing it as even. That's great. So for 11 it is printing it as it is not printing anything because you have not written else statement here. For example, let me also provide the else statement here. Else print odd. So 11 is an odd number and 10 is an even number. That's common, generic, right? So now, whenever there is one condition, you can perform just a condition statement and you can perform the operation. What if I have multiple elements, right? If an user provides multiple elements, consider the user is providing an input as less is equals to, is providing n number of list of elements like 23, 43, 89, 90, 92, 56, 70. So, if he is providing multiple elements, now if he is asking you to find the elements which is even and odd, so at that particular times what you want to do, you want to iterate the number of elements that is present inside the list. At that particular time you want to go for loop. For in less, what is this less? Less is nothing but your iterables, where you can iterate between the list of elements. So here you are writing the same condition here. Rather than writing it, just let me copy it and paste it here. If rather than writing 19 here, what can I do? I can just specify this I, that is nothing but item that is present inside the list, right? Initially it will be like 23, whether 23 mode 2 equals to 0. Whether 23 mode 2 equals to 0 will be true or false, the output will be false because the remainder won't be turned to 0, right? The remainder will be 1. So if I execute this, let me also specify the indentation. As I mentioned, whenever you are performing a for loop, indentation is very important. So you are writing an if condition here, you have given the colon here, you have not specified the indentation. That's why it is throwing an error by stating that here you want to provide the indentation. Read the error. Always you want to start reading the error. It is telling that expected an indented block after an if statement on the line number 4. So let me go here. This is 4 space is given for this loop, for loop, and I want to give 4 spaces for while loop as well. Just use tab. Perfect. If you execute, you are getting an output as odd, 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 even, even, even. So that is nothing but these many odd elements and these are the even elements. If you ask me, can I also print the value? Yes, you can also print the values by writing it as comma I. I is what? Iterable. I mean, items that is present inside the iterables. You are iterating it, right? 23 is an odd number, 43 is an odd number, 89 is an odd number, 90 is an even number, 92 is an even number, 56 is an even number, 70 is an even number. So let me also provide here 77. So now you can see the output of 77 is odd number. So this is how you can perform by using the for loop. I hope everyone understood how the for loop is working. So this is the intro of your for loop and as well as while loop. Now in the next session, we will be discussing in deeper understanding of what is for loop, and we'll try to solve lot many questions by using the for loop and as well as by using the while loop. Thank you. As we discussed break statement and while loop, now we'll start using how the break statement works in for loop, right? What does break does? Break is nothing but it will stop the entire loop to operate, right? To iterate. That's what we discussed in the while loop. Now we do the same thing in for loop. What I will do, let me copy the list that was defined earlier. Let me copy and paste it here. So let me write a simple for loop by stating that for I in, that is nothing but for item n, the list. List is nothing but the iterables that is already defined. So here you are printing a condition here if I is over 60, right? If you are checking if I is over 60, consider any value over the 60. For example, you can see here after 89, we don't have any value. We have one value over less than 50. That is fine. So you are specifying if I is greater than 60, you want to break the entire loop. Then you are printing the value of I. So what happens? So it will go for the first element, that is 23. Is 23 is greater than 60? No. The output will be false, right? So that means this condition is not satisfied. So directly it will move to the print statement. If this condition satisfies, then it will go to the break statement and breaks the entire loop, right? So the output will be 23 at initial stage. Next, it will check for 43. Again, 43 is not greater than 60. So again, it will print the 43. So it will go for 89. Is 89 is greater than 60? Yes, 89 is greater than 60. So this condition will become true. Once this condition is true, this will break the entire loop. So the resultant output will be 23 and 43. So let me try printing this. Can you see here? The resultant output is 23 and 43. Why? Because it will go for 83 and then 83 is greater than 60. So it is entirely breaking the loop. So if it is also like 20 or 10, the 10 will not print because the entire loop is breaking here itself. It is not proceeding further. If I execute, can you see here? It is not at print. So now we'll try to use how the break works in the nested loop, nested for loop. All right. So break in nested for loop. So now let me provide some range of values like from 1 to 10 of values. For I in a range of 1 comma 11. So I'm printing from 1 to 10. If I'm writing a conditional statement, if I is greater than 5, I'm checking if I is greater than 5. If this is greater than 5, then break the entire loop. Okay. Then I'm telling print the multiple of tables, right? For example, I want to print the multiplication of tables like ones are, twos are, threes are, fours are, fives are, etc. So I'm providing multiplication table of I. That is nothing but initially I'm starting with 1, right? That is nothing but let me print it as I. So I'm writing an inner for loop here for I in or else for j in range of 1 comma 11. Again I am iterating with 10 times. So now let me print it as print I into j and let me execute this and show you the resultant output. So it is printing multiplication of table 1, it is printing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So how it is working in the sense in the back end. So the output here is the outer range or outer for loop is 1, that is multiplied 10 times of inner for loop. That is nothing but 1 into 1, 1 into 2, 1 into 3, etc. So you can also print it as in this way for better understanding. What you can see, what is your 1? That is nothing but your I. 1 into ones are 1, 1 into twos are 2, right? So let me provide here 1. I want to use multiple f string here, so I will write as f, right? And once you write the f string, you want to specify the quotes. So here, let me specify this information in the curly braces. That is nothing but the value of I is nothing but your 1, 1s are, 2, 2s are, 3, 3s are. So this j will also get replaced now. So I will write j as the particular information, that is nothing but I into j, right? So can you see here 1 into 1s are, 2 2s are, so 2 2s are 4, 2 3s are 6, 2 4s are 8. So the resultant output is printed in this way. I hope that's clear to everyone how this entire for loop works. So 4 into 1s are 4, you can also add in that way if you need. So it is printing and it is stopping up till 5, but it is not continuing after 5. Why is this? Because you are writing a conditional statement here. If I is greater than 5, you want to stop, you want to break the entire loop. So when the output range or outer query of I is 1, it is printing. Outer query of I is 2, it is working fine. Outer query of 5 till here it is worked fine, but outer query is greater than 5, it is stopping. It is stopping the entire loop. It is getting breaked. So this is how you can use the break statement in the nested for loop. So how does this entire information we are dealing with numerical data. If you want to deal with the categorical data, how the for loop works, let me explain you. Consider there is an information such as student details, right, in the list, or else consider there is a sentence over here by stating that I am Jeevan Raj, I work at Imarticus learning, right. So this is your entire sentence. If you use for loop for info, info is nothing but it is in the string data type. How do you check this whether which data type the info is present? You can write the type of info, right? So that prints you the what is the data type of the info. So it is telling string data type. So if you iterate the particular string information, it will iterate as individual element, right? But now consider there is a question by stating that you want to extract only those word which is more than 5 characters. I want to extract only those word which are more than 5 characters. So if you provide if condition, if I is greater than 5, you want to print the I. So none of the output will be printed here. So it is telling that for I in info if I is greater than 5. So what is I here? I is not a integer value. Perfect. I want to see the length of I, not just I. So provide length of I. So no output is printed because it is iterating as an individual elements. If you want to see what will be the output, just you can remove this or else you can use control plus forward slash to what? Make it as comment and then you can make it as print I. So the output of I will be individual characters like I, A, Yang, J, E, E. So it is not printing based on the words. If you want to convert this into based on the words, what you can do in the info or in the string, we have a functionality called split. Right? What split does? By default, split takes the space as the character as the delimiter to split the values. The separator will be space by default. How will you want to see the documentation? You can use shift and tab. You can see the documentation. It is telling that the separator is by default is none and space. So the information is now present in the list format. How do I see it is in which format? You can just use type of this. So now it is in list format. Now can we iterate these elements? Yes. Now if you iterate this element, it will print the individual words. So what I can do here in the modification, just writing instead of just writing an info, I want to write as dots split. So this has splitted into each and every individual word. Now I will remove this I will remove this I, and now the code that I have made as comment, let me remove that comment and let me execute. So now these are the 3 words which has more than 5 characters. So this is how you can use for loop to print the number of words which are greater than 5 characters. So as I have explained how to use break statement in for loop and how to use break statement in the nested loop, how to perform the string functionalities in for loop. So either way we can try performing various applications or various tasks by using the for loop. So let me take a last question on for loop. So consider as I mentioned before, this is the question I have mentioned. write a query to print from 1 to 100 which contains 5 in it. So how will you write? First I will want to iterate, right, for I in range of 1 comma 101. So if you print I, so the output will be 1 to 100, right, 1 to 100. So there is a condition by stating that if I contains 5, then only print the output. So I want to make sure that writing a condition if phi in str of I. So what happens here? I want to give an, can you see here how beautiful the Python is? Python is able to explain you what is the error. So it is telling expected semicolon, colon is not provided because you are writing an statement here below. So here you got the output. What is happening in the backend? It is checking the string phi that is present in the string or not. For example, it is checking in this way, where phi in 25. So if phi is present in 25, the output will be true, then only it is printing the value of I. So if phi is not present in 26, it will print it as false, so the output is not printed. So if you want to print all the information in the same line, what you can do, you can also use comma, end it in the same line. You can use end. If you want to separate it by comma, you can give the separator. So I can see here, it is ended in the same line by using the separator as comma. Yes guys, this is a simple way you can use for loop and you can perform various types of tasks. So whenever you start dealing with complex queries, for loop will be more oftenly used in your daily life. So next we'll be talking about functions and we'll also be talking about list comprehensions and dictionary comprehensions. Over there, I'll be explaining in detailed understanding of how to solve the complex questions by using the for loop in list and dictionary comprehension. Thank you.